Hello all mistresses of evil. On this tutorial I'm going to show you how to create your own Maleficent costume. Also, don't forget to watch my Maleficent makeup tutorial. Start out with a basic maxi or mini form-fitting dress such as the one that I purchased from H&M. Now, if you're having a difficult time locating a similar dress from your local H&M, I've also listed additional stores on my website. I'm using a heavier weight type of interfacing that's used for home and craft. The one I'm using was purchased from Joann's, and I've also listed the actual style number on my website. Fold the interfacing in half and make two small clips, one at the top and the bottom of the fold. Use the clips as your guide and draw a straight line. Label one side of the clipped area as your center back. The following step is based on your neck size and preference. Since I'm petite and obviously have a shorter neck, I'm going to take about 5 inches from the width. Normally the width on an interfacing is anywhere between 40 to 45 inches. It varies from manufacturer. If you're concerned about losing too much of that fold over effect where you get the nice high collar, then just leave it as is. Determine the center lines by folding the dress in half. Pin down the location and place a couple of basting stitches on the center front and the center back of the dress. My dress already has the center back seam, so I'm just using that as a guide. The only thing I needed was the center front location. Take the collar and begin pinning it from center back. The edge of the interfacing and your dress collar have to be aligned as you're pinning. As you get closer to the center front of the dress, you'll start to notice the excess fabric. Stop pinning about a ½ inch from the center front neckline. Put a temporary basting stitch all around the collar and make sure you don't get pricked by the needles. Just take your time. Now carefully pull the collar upwards, this way the collar is standing up straight. Pay attention to the V shape. On each side you have excess interfacing. Once the interfacing is sewn onto the fabric and attached to the neckline, we'll go ahead and close up the collar. The interfacing collar fits, everything looks good. Unbaste it and put it aside. We're going to start focusing on the fabric. I'm using satin polyester and I'm coming in about 1 inch from the selvage. Place the interfacing along the 1-inch guideline and pin. Add the 1-inch seam allowance all along that square piece. I've added a 1-inch seam allowance as opposed to the 1/2 inch in the event that I run into any kind of fitting problems. Cut away the excess using a rotary cutter or a scissor. Make sure that the center front and center back notches are labeled. I am so sorry about the camera malfunction. I didn't know it was so shaky. Lay out your contrast fabric and take the fabric that we just worked on and place it on top. Begin by matching and pinning the selvage area first. Remember, the selvage is the lengthwise grain. Pin both pieces all the way through and cut away the excess. Sew only one corner, keeping the seam allowance in mind. Remember, I used 1 inch and not 1/2 inch this time. You're not going to sew up the case just yet. You're just going to put the interfacing in there, make sure it fits, you don't have any issues, take it out, and then we'll sew one corner, which you'll see in a moment. The interfacing is removed. You'll pin only one side, which is the widthwise grain, and sew at the 1/2 inch or 1 inch seam allowance. Cut the seam allowance down to about 1/4 inch, except for the area marked B, because that gets attached to the collar on the dress. The side that I indicated with the letter B remains open and untouched. Cut the corners of the collar without going into the stitching. Turn the collar inside out. Using a pointer or the tip of a pencil, push the point out to give it a nice sharp point. If you're using a polyester type of fabric, make sure to put out silk organza or cotton muslin on top of the fabric before you start ironing, or you'll end up just burning your entire fabric away. Slip the interfacing in and make sure it lays completely flat before you sew it. Pin and sew the lower edge. Remember, that's the center back. If you don't have the marking for the center back, just fold the fabric in half and place a notch. Start pinning from the center back. Once you've attached the collar to the dress, The seam allowance automatically folds inward because of the weight of the fabric. Stop pinning 1/4 inch from the center front thread basting. We are almost done. All you have to do is close up the center front collar. Align both edges of the collar, pin and sew, making sure the stitches match right along the stitch line. Take the measurement of the hemline and divide it into 2. Come up about 17 inches and place a notch. Take half of that hemline measurement and draw a straight line. Now extend out your flare as much as you like and circle out your hemline. Add your 1/2 inch seam allowance all around. Determine your grain line by placing the ruler against the selvage of the fabric. Place that on the fabric, match your grain lines, and pin. Pin and sew the side seams. Slip it onto the hem, matching right sides together, and pin. You can either sew or use long basting stitches. In fact, you could do the same thing to the collar, and once you've done wearing the costume, you can remove the long basting stitches without damaging the dress and wear it like it was never altered or touched. You can even use this tutorial to create your own vampire's costume. Want to make it more dramatic? Just sandwich a cape in between the collar and the dress itself.